Welcome to the demonstration of market readiness for carbon offset trading in South Africa. My name is H.J. Swanepoel. I'm from Prometheum Carbon and I'll be your MC for this afternoon. Just to explain the proceedings for this afternoon, Ms. Nikki Newton-King, the Chief Executive Officer of the JSE, will welcome everyone. Thereafter, the British High Commissioner to South Africa, Mrs. Judith McGregor, will do the opening of the event. We'll then start delving into the background and into the mechanics of this demonstration for the reason why we are here today. After that, we'll listen to some testimonies and perspectives from some of the participants that actually took part in the trades for the demonstration of today. Lastly, we'll have someone from the designated national authority that will share some views on the perspective of CDM in South Africa today. I would like to ask everyone to please keep your questions handy for afterwards, as we'll open the floor to questions for half an hour or so after all the speeches and presentations. So without any further ado, I would like Nikki to come to the stage.
Thanks, Ed. Thank you, HJ. It's very nice to see so many of you here and to see a number of you back, because it feels like yesterday that we were here just talking about progress on this project. But of course, this is the culmination of 3 years of work with Prometheum and the JSE, and very kindly supported by the British High Commission. And we're really very excited that today we've actually been able to demonstrate how our platforms, which we are, I think, really very proud of, are able to handle a carbon trade and to do so actually remarkably easily. And I think that's important, because it's all very well having the policy backing, and it's all very well having people who want to do things in this space, but in fact actually having the technology that enables people to do it, actually do it quickly, easily, cheaply, I think is very important. And our team's been able to work with Prometheum and the other market participants to make this work. There's of course always a little bit of work still to go, so we do actually have to get the regulators, and this is not putting them under pressure because the rest of us are ready, but we do need to get carbon credits classified as a financial instrument under our regulation, and so I really can't see why that should be tricky, but that's still got to happen, and then we're ready to go. So I have a great pleasure in handing over to the British High Commissioner, who has been a very energetic force since arriving in this country. High Commissioner.
Well, thank you very much, and welcome to the opening today of this demonstration of indeed 3 years now of a series of projects which have worked through different options in sort of carbon trading, offsets, carbon mitigation against carbon taxes, to something which is now really quite synthetically put together to give this demonstration of how offset trading could actually work. So first of all, I think it behoves me to say that there are a number of people to recognise, and in particular, obviously, Nikki, I would like to thank you and the whole JSE team, and particularly Chris Sturgis and Shamira Ibrahim. And Robbie Lowe and team from Prometheum Carbon, thank you very much for all that you've put into this. And also Cecil Morden and the team from the National Treasury. I know that, it's one of those great things with projects. You can bring together a very wide range of interest groups. And over 3 years, I think some really substantive partnerships have been developed. And I must say, I'm particularly excited because I find these areas of the climate change debate sometimes quite mystifying as to how these mechanisms work. So I'm looking forward very much to actually seeing some practical explanations today. And I'm also delighted, obviously, that we do feel that through this project we've made an important step towards the South African government's goal to reduce carbon emission. And of course, it's absolutely 100% in alignment with my country's long-term vision for an efficient global carbon market under a multilateral framework and building on a network of linked emissions trading systems, not unlike, I'm sure, the one we're going to see today. And that's not such a far-fetched goal, because now about 40 countries around the world are actually engaged in existing or developing emissions trading markets. and schemes. And 17, including South Africa, are in the World Bank's partnership for market readiness. So I think that action already, which I'm told covers something like 12% of greenhouse gas emissions worldwide, I think is a very encouraging step in what has nevertheless been quite a long journey towards carbon trading. And as the world prepares, of course, this year for the global climate negotiations in Paris at the end of the year, and we're reminded that time is of the essence and action is needed as emissions continue to rise and the window of opportunity is closing for us, actually, to limit warming to 2 degrees. Yesterday in London, our Department for Environment and Climate Change launched a global calculator, familiar to some of you because there's been a partnership between the UK and South Africa to launch a national country calculator here, a carbon calculator, a web-based tool for business, NGOs and governments to consider the options for cutting carbon emissions and the trade-offs for energy and land use through to 2050. That launched yesterday in the UK. It's available online, obviously. And with it, we have put our commentary and our belief that with proper choices and proper use of technology and fuels and all the mechanisms that are available to us, we actually can have sustainable growth and development, provided we keep below the 2%. 2 degrees increase, and also that actually the costs of mitigation globally in that period can also be made affordable and manageable. But it does require choices and actions and incentivization of all the strata in society who, of course, are contributing towards the climate change. And if we don't get it right, a little reminder that it's a threat not just to our environment, but to our national security, our global security, poverty eradication and prosperity. And I think it's sort of been great to be working first in Mexico, where I came a year and a half ago, but now in South Africa, both countries who I think really have supported those arguments that have been put forward and most recently re-enunciated in the new climate economy study, which says that basically acting on climate change now can boost our economic growth and that countries of all level of income now have the opportunity to build lasting economic growth at the same time as reducing the immense risks of climate change. So, back to the real world, back to here and now. But I think this is an example that the business world really is at a point where more and more companies are taking steps to secure their futures by taking their emissions reductions seriously and investing in credible alternatives. Obviously, in the UK, for some time now, we've had carbon trading. We've had, obviously, the City of London being a prime centre for that. But I'm delighted that one of the foremost stock exchanges of the world is also joining with us and has done in his last 2 years in that. And I just would basically say, I don't know if we need year 4 of a project to take this further. I think perhaps it's now out to business to actually, put the pressure on for governments to respond to those calls and for all of us to act together and take advantage of carbon tax proposals coming shortly and actually really build on what we're about to see and make it work. So thank you very much for all of your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Newton-King and High Commissioner. Our next speakers will be a joint speaking slot. First speaker will be Robbie Lowe. Robbie is director and the founding member of Promethium Carbon. Robbie will then hand over to Chris Sturgis, who is the director of commodity derivatives at the JSE, and Annalisa Matutu, senior commodity derivatives officer at the JSE, will then also take us through the slides. So, Robbie?
Thank you very much. I've got one of these things because I'm a bit restless. I walk around while I talk. So I'd like to just give you some background about this demonstration. So I'll talk you through a couple of slides. Let me see if this works. Yeah, this works. The High Commissioner has already mentioned that we've been working on this project for about 3 years now, just over 3 years. In the process, we've published a number of reports. For a lot of you who's not intimately involved with climate change, some of the things that we'll say today will sound a little bit disconnected. together those 6 reports probably account for between 200 and 300 pages of very difficult stuff. So if you want to go and read it, it's available for download from the website. I'd like to just take a step back and go towards where we started, what we wanted to do. Because globally there's a lot of carbon trading systems. The European Union has got one that works brilliantly. It's even still got a carbon price. California has got one. South Korea, China has got 7. The city of Tokyo has got one. So there's a lot of carbon trading systems worldwide. But if you go and have a look at what it took to build those systems, you'll find that in a lot of cases it was a significant investment in both time and money. And if you look at what they achieve at the end of the day, they achieve exactly what all the other commodity exchanges worldwide achieve. At the end of the day, once you look through everything, there's not a big difference between these incredibly expensive, cumbersome machines people have built and what other exchanges worldwide accomplish. So we said, what we wanted to do, this is 3 years ago, we said, the most important thing is we've got to ensure the integrity of the system. If somebody trades a ton of carbon, the integrity of the system must be beyond any doubt. Secondly, we need to minimize the time to set up the system, because by January this year already we would have had a carbon tax. And the carbon offsets in South Africa was envisaged to be a mechanism for companies to mitigate the carbon tax liability. So we needed something with which we can get up and running as soon as possible. We needed to minimize the cost. Everybody knows that money is something you've got to look after. And then the cost, I talked there about the cost of actually setting up the system, building the system. And then once the system is up and running, we need to minimize transaction cost to make it worthwhile for people to participate in the market. So what we did is we said, ensure that the integrity of the system. We've got incredibly good financial and commercial systems and platforms running in South Africa. We said, is it possible to build on them? Minimize time to set up the system. You do that by maximizing the use of existing infrastructure. Don't demolish and build again. Build on what there is. The same to minimize the cost to set up the system. And for the minimization of transaction cost, we said what you need to achieve is you need economies of scale, and you need a variety of standards. A variety of standards will give you competition. It will give you the opportunity to look for the one that gives you, for your specific application, the lowest cost. Economies of scale brings down cost overall. And in this demonstration, we've managed to achieve all of those objectives. So let's start with the most important thing. The most important thing is integrity. In other words, if we trade a ton, we want to know that it's a ton. We want to know that it's worth. It is actually emission reduction achieved. We want to know that if it's in my account, it will stay in my account. And if I pay money, the money won't go into Joe Crook's pocket. So we divided it into, let me just see where the pointer is on this thing. Probably the red button. Yeah. We said we're looking for environmental integrity. We're looking for national appropriateness. I'll talk to you about that now because it's a fairly unused term in the carbon space. And we will look at financial integrity. Environmental integrity is to ensure that a ton is a ton. If I say I've got a certificate that represents a ton of emission reduction, I must know that that's a ton that's actually been taken out of the environment. National appropriateness, we use that term to refer to the South African government's criteria or eligibility of offsets in South Africa. The South African government will not be happy if you buy industrial gas credits out of China. And there's a whole set of rules. So we need to be able to assure that the credits that we trade is appropriate for the South African conditions. And then the financial integrity is obvious. You don't want people to steal your money. So how do we achieve that? We achieve it by looking at existing infrastructure. For the environmental integrity, we look at existing standards like the CDM, the VCS, Gold Standard, and the CCBA. National appropriateness, we're looking at ISO accredited auditors. Since January last year, auditors in South Africa can be accredited in terms of ISO 14065. To date, none of them have taken it up because the market doesn't exist yet. There's, however, a whole body of auditors, a whole number of companies out there that are ISO 14000 accredited auditors and then that can add it on. And then we've got the designated national authority. For the financial integrity, we're looking at what we call in this study the listing entity, and we'll dig into that a bit deeper a bit later. We're looking at the registry that currently houses South Africa's commodities trading platform, or the electronic certificates that backs South Africa's commodity trading silo search, and we're looking at the JSE to guarantee the financial integrity. Just down at the bottom there, the use of existing infrastructure ensures maximum integrity. There's no way anybody, even if he's a financial Einstein, is going to build a system in the next year that will be able to match the integrity and the credibility of the platforms that's been supporting the economy of this country for the past decades. Doesn't matter how sharp you are, how much money you've got, you cannot do that. It will be the lowest cost to implement. Nothing you build now will be cheaper than to latch onto a platform that already exists. It will be the fastest time to market. Anything you try and build now will take time. This thing exists. It will give you the biggest economies of scale. If you look at the JSE, Chris has mentioned this a bit earlier, that there's large volumes of oil being traded at the moment. If you put carbon onto the existing commodities trading platform, you've got the economies of scale that help support the infrastructure. If you go and build a standalone carbon market, there's no way on earth that you can get the same economies of scale. And then most importantly, we all know that the country is only as good as its people. What we will do is we will build on the existing skills and experience of the people. We will expand them, we will grow it, and we will benefit the country in that way. Okay, I don't have a lot of time, so I'll go fast. Mechanics of the demonstration. We've got certain market participants, most of them are here today, that participated in the demonstration. What we did is they traded carbon in 4 transactions. 5 transactions. The projects were all inside South Africa. We didn't put any more limitations on it other than to say it's in South Africa. We know National Treasury has got certain other limitations, but we said any carbon in South Africa. We had to trade value because we wanted it to be real trades. And the carbon tax isn't legislated yet, so there's no compliance value to carbon credits at the moment. You could have a speculative value to carbon credits, because people may say, I expect carbon tax to come in, therefore I expect it to have value. But we wanted real value, so we traded in the voluntary market, and we traded credits that's used to offset certain corporate or other activities, and you'll hear a bit about that a bit later. And the trades were over the counter. In other words, the trades did not go through the registry or through the JSE. Then at the same time, we mirrored the trades in test environments in both the registry and the JSE. In the registry, we opened the accounts in the names of the participants. We actually did the paperwork, went through the motions, opened account for each participant. The listing entity listed the credits in the accounts. The credits were transferred to the buyers, and they were cancelled. And the cancellation is because the credits are used to offset certain emissions, so you've got to cancel the credits. We did the same in the JSE, but Chris will talk about that later, so that gives me the opportunity to skip over what the JSE did. These were the participants, alphabetically. Backsburg is a wine estate that exports quite a lot of wine. They were the first carbon neutral wine estate in South Africa. They've been offsetting their emissions for probably about 5 years now. The climate neutral group, France is here somewhere. They supplied credits to Sanlam and the Sanlam Marathon. Harmony Gold bought credits to offset the printing and distribution of the annual reports for 2015, which will go out shortly. Nedbank bought credits. You know, Nedbank's a carbon neutral bank. They're so carbon neutral, they could only afford to send 1 person to the event today. West Duncan. Nedbank bought credits from Sibanye Gold. Danny's here from Sibanye Gold. And then, sorry, now my mind slipped me. And I've run out of time in any case, so there's more detail, but I've run out of time. How's that for a good excuse? Very briefly, how the market structure works. And there's a lot of detail in the reports. So if anybody wants to dig into this a bit deeper. But basically, we've got the registry. We've got the trading platform. Now, it's very important to note that the trades do not have to go through the JSE. If you've got a registry account, you can do over-the-counter trade. So the JSE platform is not a single-channel trading system. We've got the listing entity. The listing entity is the entity that guarantees the integrity of the credits. It does so on the basis of two pieces of documentation, sets of documentation. The one is the listing of the issuance of the credits in the registry of origin, in other words, the CDM. A number of these credits come out of the CDM registry. And the second is the national appropriateness. Both of these are audited by the ISO accredited auditors. We've got Adam here today. There from Carbon Check. He's a good example of a carbon auditor. So company A, who is the seller, provides that documentation to the listing entity. The listing entity lists the credits in the account of company A, trades through the JSE into the account of company B, and then I saw Peter here a bit earlier from National Treasury. Then that goes into the SARS cancellation account, and you've offset your carbon tax liability. As I said, there's a lot more information about this in the reports if you want to dig into it, and the report's available for download. Chris, can I hand over to you too? Thanks.
Thanks very much, Robbie. I think we're just trying to keep the momentum going, and so yeah, we'll see a flow of speakers coming through. But I think for us, it's been really a privilege working with the team of Prometheum and obviously Silo Certs, our warehouse partners, and really we enjoyed the challenge. We could see how quick could we bring this potential product to the market, and that's kind of sharing what we've got today. So. The important point is we never did the actual trade through the exchange, just so that all those legal people out there are aware that we do not have a license at this stage to trade carbon credits. But in terms of really just illustrating how you could, through the flexibility of our platforms, load an instrument and facilitate trading, facilitate price discovery. Ultimately, that would be the function of the JSE. Bring in buyers and sellers together to say exactly what is that price of carbon today. And yes, this is a unique market. What will stimulate that would be the carbon tax. So we've got a cap on pricing, but at least you've got some transparency around the pricing up to that cap. And really for us, in working through this and deciding which of because we operate a number of different technology bases, we decided where could we bring it to the market quickest. And really the research showed that it fits very closely with the commodity derivatives platform, where we trade the South African maize crop 10 or 11 times over. We trade, as Robbie said, we trade crude oil. If you're interested in any exposure, or if you want to hedge diesel, you can do that as well. But in terms of that fit, partnering with Silo Certs, who does all the registry services for us in the grain market, it was something that we could easily bring to the market. And Annalisa, certainly my colleague, will just take you through a few of those snapshots just to visualize how this would happen. Now, clearly, you don't have to have an electronic system. We could have just said we're going to do floor trading, but I don't think we've got any floor traders around that can still remember the signals of buying and selling. So we're all electronic, and certainly that's the way we'd like to go. So the important point, Nikki also alluded to it, is for us to move forward on this, is really just constructive discussion with our regulator in terms of how we interpret carbon credits, and ultimately, if the register is comfortable with our interpretation that it is linked to an underlying asset, it would then fall into a security and under our license as an exchange operator. So I really didn't want to spend too much time, but just to really indicate to you that we've got the flexibility to be able to deliver the systems, for us to operate a market, for us to use our clearing systems to guarantee the trades, but it does require some momentum. It does require some decision making from a government side to stimulate the process. So really, thank you for your time. I'm really going to hand over to Annalisa, who can take you through a couple of the visuals. Enjoy them.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much, Chris, for the introduction. So what we did is we listed a standardized carbon credit contract, which is equivalent to 1 ton of carbon dioxide in the commodity derivatives trading platform. We allocated a trading code, CRNB, for carbon, and we listed the contract with an expiration date of the 27th of February 2015, just to align the expiration date with the end of tax season. Okay, as mentioned, this is a commodity derivatives trading platform, which is a very transparent platform. So as you can see from this slide, what I tried to get out of this is the bids, which is the buy orders in the market, and the offers, which is the sell orders in the market. All of this is available on the trading screen, so any market participant can see exactly who is bidding and who is offering in the market. So that would be the member column. Now, once the bid and the offer price match, we would generate a deal which is visible on the completed orders on the completed orders view. Here, we indicate the specific or unique exchange reference for each deal, the price where it matched, the time when it matched, and the dealer that actually transacted. We also have a lot of deal management functionality on this view. And now in terms of the positions, every single dealer that is trading the carbon contract would be able to see their own positions in the market for the carbon contract. And now just to get into the carbon credit delivery, well, tendering of delivery, we agreed to use the current functionality that we have for our agricultural products, the physical delivery processes. So this is where the seller or the owner of the carbon credit would actually capture the information of the carbon credit into the trading system, which is already integrated with the ESE registry. So what we do is we'd validate the information on the actual carbon credit to the information that's sitting in the ESE registry before the seller can actually offer the carbon credit for sale. Also, just on JSE clearing, which clears and settles all the derivatives transactions, would also rely on the JSE clearing system to settle all the financial transactions, as well as be responsible to transfer ownership of the actual carbon credits. So in essence, the proposal to leverage off existing processes and system allows for a more cost-effective implementation of the carbon market in terms of trading and clearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robbie, Chris, and Annalisa. Today would not be possible or as successful without the companies that participated in the trades of the day. Robbie mentioned the first couple of companies, and some of the companies that participated, Sanlam and Sanlam Cape Town Marathon, were buyers of credits. SAPI sold some credits. Sibanye Gold we mentioned. And then Statkraft also facilitated the sale of some credits of Corabrik. So therefore, we are ready to hear some testimonies from some of these participants and hear their stories and reasoning why they decided to take part and purchase or sell credits, and also to hear maybe a story of their journey. I would like to ask Mr. Francois Adrian, the head of Group Corporate Affairs at Sanlam, and Ilana Meyer, an athlete that we know, and she's in the position of patron of the Sanlam Cape Town Marathon, to share their story with us.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. British High Commissioner, Chief Executive of the JSE, Prometheum Capital, and ladies and gentlemen. I don't have the crutch that Robbie had with that fancy Madonna thing, so I'm stuck behind here, unfortunately. I don't have the crutch of slides and PowerPoints, so I'm just going to kind of read what I've kind of penned down here. It's a great pleasure for Sanlam to be part of this very important initiative, particularly for us to be among the first to trade in this particular pilot and to demonstrate the readiness of this, what is undoubtedly a groundbreaking platform. We believe this initiative is a great leap in the history of this country's environmental sustainability and will contribute substantially to the efforts to preserve our environment. Furthermore, through the projects that we have selected to offset our carbon with, we are looking for this intersection, this very important intersection between environmental impact and social dividends that can be delivered through these transactions. And maybe at some point we can talk during the question time around where exactly we've bought our carbon credits, the projects that where we've offset. As part of the Sanlam brand refresh, many of you might have seen some of the new logo and the colors and all the rest of it. We've put out a positioning statement that says that Sanlam is committed to help create a world worth living in and enabling people to live the best possible lives within it. And I think for us, that particular vision is part of why we're involved with this particular initiative. Ilana's going to chat a little bit about the Sanlam Cape Town Marathon. And hopefully there's some tips there for those people that are going to be running the marathon this year. You know, how do you get to be up on the podium so they're not only Kenyans not only Kenyans up there. So I won't kind of dwell on some of the detail around the Sanlam Cape Town Marathon, except to say that for last year, as part of the marathon, we hosted a peace symposium. And there were quite a number of NGOs, government officials that spent an entire day talking through peace and the connection between peace and what the marathon represents. And Ilana will talk about a little bit of detail in a second. I think Sanlam's not new to mitigating our carbon footprint with some of the events that we either sponsor or events that we kind of put up ourselves. During the course of last year, we've got a fairly large piece of research that sits within the employee benefit space. And we were able to, there's a research in the retirement industry, and we were able to offset all of those big events that we put together by buying credits. And our approach was first to look at how do we minimize the carbon footprints of those particular events, like the Sanlam Cape Town Marathon. And then the next step was whatever we couldn't minimize, we were looking for opportunities to kind of offset. And that's probably the correct approach that sort of works for us. While Sanlam's core business activities have a low impact on the environment, we recognize that some of our activities, such as our events, have a slightly larger environmental footprint. And as a responsible corporate citizen that cares about the environment and one that is concerned with the sustainability of our business and with that of the communities in which we operate, it's important for us to look at how we can address the impact of those particular events. We do this because, and there are a couple of reasons, we do this because it forms part of our DNA. A lot of our actions we would like to think is not necessarily driven by legislation. We need to be kind of 1 or 2 steps ahead of the curve to be doing the right things because it's the right thing to do. You would have, or you might have heard this word that we coined during the course of last year called wealth smiths. It's a new word, it doesn't exist. We're busy infusing meaning into this word wealth smiths. And for us, a wealth smith, the concept of wealth is not only the financial wealth that kind of gets exchanged on the JSE. It's also very important elements like social capital, like natural capital, like manufactured capital. And for us, the natural capital element is quite a critical one. We remain committed to build a sustainable and lasting business legacy by creating value for all of our stakeholders, in South Africa in particular. In conclusion, and I'm sure you're glad to hear that, in conclusion, there's still about a page after I say in conclusion. In conclusion, I must really express heartfelt thanks to Robbie and his team for kind of enlisting us and enrolling us in this particular project. I think it's an amazing effort that we've put together, that you've put together, and we certainly hope that some of the other logos that are not up on that screen, that those logos are going to start appearing there pretty quickly. Few of us have taken some of those first steps, and I think we're trying to encourage some of the others that are not there to be doing the same fairly quickly. On that note, I want to hand over to somebody far more interesting. Ilana's going to share some of her tips and some of the experiences that she's been able to pick up with the Sanlam Cape Town Marathon.
So, well, thank you very much. Hi, Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute privilege for me to be here. You know, this is not my normal playing ground, but I'm a really proud ambassador of the Sanlam Cape Town Marathon, and I can proudly say that it is a carbon neutral event. I had the opportunity for over a decade to run marathons all over the world. I've participated in London, New York, Chicago, Tokyo, Boston, and many others, and really have seen, you know, all the opportunities that goes with the big city marathons, and that it also really is a platform to exhibit change. So the Cape Town Marathon, in partnership with Sanlam, was last year relaunched. And for the first relaunched event, we already had almost 13,000 participants from 52 different countries. But we are committed to show our concern for sustainability, to keep it a green event, and in future continue to measure the carbon footprint of the event. This year already, as the event grows, it will be more important to invest in the event, to keep it a green and a truly sustainable impact in the environment. Already in year one, we have made sure that we incorporate a huge component, a peace conference. We've incorporated a huge charity platform that engage on all different levels of sustainability. In the same sense, we also want to challenge all the other events in South Africa. It is a leader in the field, and we really want to challenge all the other events to follow in the same footsteps. Cape Town Marathon, the vision is to one day to become one of the leaders in the field, to become one of the major marathons across the world, but that really embrace and incorporate and stay a carbon neutral event. So thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. Sport has got an amazing power to impact, you know, and I would really like to invite everybody to also, the Cape Town Marathon is to showcase Cape Town, South Africa, and the rest of Africa, and to be a leader in the field. And thank you very much for this great opportunity.
Thank you very much, Fransha and Ilana. Our next speaker is also from a financial institution, from Nedbank. Nedbank is quite prominent in the carbon space and well known. And I asked Mr. Duncan Abel to say a few words of their journey. Duncan is a senior forestry carbon transactor at Nedbank Capital.
Thanks, Ajay. I'm not sure if anyone's going to believe me when I tell them that I finished quite closely behind Ilana Meyer. And when I say closely, I'll try and keep this short, so it was really closely. Robbie introduced us at the start to sort of say that Nedbank is a carbon neutral financial institution. And we're the first to become carbon neutral in Africa in 2010, and are one of probably less than a handful of companies in South Africa who remain carbon neutral, or who are carbon neutral and intend to remain carbon neutral. So with or without the carbon tax, with or without the sort of the trading scheme, it's part of our ongoing strategy and part of something that we hold dear. It's also forming part of a broader strategy within the bank, which we're calling Fair Share 2030, where the bank has set a number of strategic targets to try and meet by 2030, looking at sustainability across communities and across the environment. And climate change is one of those objectives that objectives that we intend to meet, amongst others relating to access to water, access to energy, health, and education. Our activities in the carbon markets, being carbon neutral, we obviously buy and sell credits, or buy credits for our own carbon neutrality, for our own carbon footprint to offset on an annual basis. The bank has a carbon footprint which has stayed fairly stable between about 220 and 250,000 tons per year. Over and above that, we then finance the development of carbon projects. We develop some projects in our own name, and we buy and sell credits on behalf of clients, both locally and internationally, for their own carbon requirements. That whole trading of carbon credits is, and again, Robbie alluded to it earlier, is very reliant on the integrity of the systems that are in place, the integrity of the entities that are involved in that trading, and the trust relationships that are built when trading when trading carbon and when trading other commodities, or for that matter any other sort of trading that does occur. And with today's event, we're fortunate that we're sort of showcasing two entities, sort of Silo Certs and the JSE, who have built that trusted relationship over many years, who trade probably billions of rands of value on an annual basis in South Africa, and that trusted relationship has been built, and there's it gives us a sense of confidence that was this trading system to go live, it was something that we could use, something that we would have faith in, and something that we would be able to advise our clients to use as well. We're obviously closely monitoring the carbon tax and the carbon offsetting element of that, and we believe that if the tax does come into being, and if offsetting is allowed under the tax, it'll obviously create the scale which will help develop a viable carbon trading market within South Africa. And again, just to emphasize that if that does happen, that we'd want it to be a trusted mechanism to allow for trading to happen in South Africa. We also realize that while today's demonstration is only a small step in getting that up and running, it's a very important step to demonstrate the capabilities within the South African market, and to demonstrate support for a carbon trading market if the necessary other elements fall in place, and with the support of government and necessary legislations. So in that, I'd like to sort of just congratulate Robbie, JSE, Silo Certs, the British High Commission on what you guys have done today, and yeah, you can be proud of it, and hopefully it's something that does go live in the near future. Thank you.
Thanks, Duncan. Our last speaker for the day is Mr. Patrick Tuwani. Patrick is the Deputy Director of the Designated National Authority for South Africa. Patrick.
Yeah, thank you very much for being given this opportunity to say a word or two regarding CDM. I've already been introduced. I'm from the section called the Designated National Authority, DNA, which is within the Department of Energy. My responsibility, among others, is to sell CDM, that indeed CDM development is doable in South Africa. Having sold that, we also assist in evaluating the projects. Those are the CDM projects, looking at their contribution socially and economically. So far, since the inception of the DNA, few projects had come to South Africa. And now, from where I am, we talk of 357 CDM projects that had come within the DNA. Of all these 357 projects, 220 are project idea notes. Those are the just proposals. So it's very much painful that it's only 220, which is a huge number of total number of projects that we have that are still at an idea stage. Because from this number, we only have 138 that are real projects. From these 138 projects, only 85 had been registered with the CDM Executive Board. So this is quite a few number globally. As countries such as China, you know, they are talking of a huge number of projects that had been registered. And from these 85, only 12 here in the country had received what we call CERs, Certified Emission Reductions. So it shows that as South Africa, we are not going, you know, as fast as we should as far as the CDM space is concerned. So who knows, maybe with the introduction of carbon tax, we might see changes in numbers, more projects coming. So yeah, that is what I was here for, and I should thank you.